Welcome to the Nogan Podcast for today. A crazy day. It's June. Let's get Google involved. Hey, Google, let's do the podcast. What's today's date?
Today's date is July 25th, 2025.
Hey, Google, let's talk about Donald Trump and this whole Epstein thing. I don't even know how to react. I warned people about this, and we talked about Katie Johnson in the previous episode.
All right, this is a heavy topic, and it's understandable why you're struggling with how to react. The connections between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein have been a subject of significant public scrutiny and concern, especially given the horrific nature of Epstein's crimes. Let's break down what's known and what's currently making headlines, especially since you mentioned Katie Johnson and the Epstein thing. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein's relationship, long-standing acquaintance. It's well documented that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein had a friendship that spanned from the late 1980s through the early 2000s. They were seen socializing at various high-profile events, including at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. Trump's past comments. In 2002, Trump was quoted in New York Magazine describing Epstein as a terrific guy and a lot of fun to be with, adding, "It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side." Flight logs and address books, Trump's phone number, as well as Melania Trump's, appeared in Epstein's leaked address books. Trump's name also appeared in the flight logs for Epstein's private planes multiple times in the 1990s. Reported falling out. Trump has stated that he had a falling out with Epstein around 2004, reportedly over a real estate dispute. Recent developments, July 2025. There's been renewed focus on this relationship. Closest friend claim. Recordings obtained by the Daily Beast, published as excerpts by other outlets, allegedly feature Epstein describing himself as Trump's closest friend for a decade and claiming intimate knowledge of Trump's personal life. 2003 birthday letter. The Wall Street Journal recently reported on a sexually suggestive letter allegedly bearing Trump's name, included in a 2003 birthday album for Epstein. Trump has denied writing the letter and is reportedly suing the Wall Street Journal over the story. DOJ acknowledgement. The Department of Justice recently confirmed that Trump's name appears multiple times in Epstein-related files, including the birthday album. This follows earlier denials by Trump's legal team. Resurfaced video. A 2010 deposition video of Jeffrey Epstein has resurfaced, where he acknowledges socializing with Donald Trump, but asserts his Fifth Amendment rights when asked if he ever socialized with Trump in the presence of females under 18. Former girlfriend's claims. Stacey Williams, a former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein, recently claimed in a CNN interview that Trump and Epstein were best friends and up to no good, and that Trump allegedly groped her in Epstein's presence. Trump has denied these allegations. Katie Johnson and her allegations. Lawsuits against Trump and Epstein. Katie Johnson, a pseudonym also referred to as Jane Doe, filed federal lawsuits in 2016 in California and later in New York against both Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Allegations of sexual assault. These lawsuits allege that Trump and Epstein sexually assaulted her when she was 13 years old at parties organized by Epstein in Manhattan in 1994. The claims included being lured with promises of a modeling career and subjected to sexual assault, threats, and forced imprisonment. Lawsuit dismissals. The initial California lawsuit was dismissed on technical grounds. The New York lawsuit was later dropped by Katie Johnson herself. Context of the allegations. These claims gained some attention in 2016, but did not receive as widespread coverage as some other allegations against Trump at the time. However, with the renewed focus on Epstein's crimes, some are revisiting these past claims. Why is this resurfacing now, and why is it important? The public's interest in the Epstein case remains high due to the severity of his crimes and the unanswered questions surrounding his network and the extent of his activities. The release of documents and renewed reporting continue to bring new details to light, leading to ongoing public discourse and calls for transparency. It's a complex and deeply disturbing issue, and the constant flow of new information can certainly be overwhelming.
Katie Johnson's testimony is so graphic and just They didn't hear me right anyway, so I got to correct the spelling. She heard Kelly Johnson for some reason. So I'm saying Katie Johnson's testimony is so graphic and disturbing that it probably shouldn't be too public. But at the same time, it's still hard to react because MAGA already knew Trump was in cahoots with Epstein. Trump was in cahoots with Epstein. But they still voted for him. Period.
You've hit on a really crucial and often difficult point when it comes to cases involving sensitive and graphic testimony, especially those of alleged sexual assault, particularly when minors are involved. The dilemma of graphic testimony: public interest versus victim protection. There's a tension between the public's right to know, especially.
Katie Johnson's testimony is so ugly and it's stomach turning. So maybe a lot of people haven't heard it. Maybe it's hidden and maybe it should stay hidden. That's the real bombshell from whatever they're hiding in the Epstein files. Her deposition is the worst.
You've really articulated the core of the ethical and practical dilemma surrounding these Epstein files, and particularly the Katie Johnson testimony. You're right.
Let me pause this here to say, if you haven't heard Katie Johnson's testimony, maybe you shouldn't hear it. It really is bad. It's really, really bad. It's really, really bad. And that's just one testimony from one incident. This thing, supposedly she was abused several times. Her and somebody else, another woman came out, and these victims have been paid. So
the descriptions in her lawsuits, which are public court filings, though not necessarily widely read by the general public due to their length and nature, are incredibly disturbing. Why it's so difficult, and why it's not hidden, but also not widely consumed. The nature of the allegations. As you said, the content is stomach-turning. This naturally limits how widely is shared or consumed by the general public. While legal documents are technically public, most people aren't poring over court filings. News organizations that do report on it often choose to summarize or allude to the content rather than publishing graphic excerpts, precisely for the reasons you mentioned, to avoid re-victimization, sensationalism, and to protect their audience. Legal protections and redactions. Even within the legal system, there are mechanisms to protect victims and sensitive information. While Katie Johnson's lawsuits were filed publicly, actual depositions, the sworn testimony taken out of court, are often sealed or heavily redacted, especially when they involve minors or highly sensitive details, to protect.
Yeah, Katie Johnson, man, she testified. And she definitely wasn't apparently in just, doing a money grab, making up some stuff. What she said was probably true, man. Like I said, I talked about it in previous podcasts, and I believe Katie Johnson. Her testimony is just too weird. It's just too weird. Her testimony is just too weird. It's too specific. When she gets into certain details, it's just like, did she memorize this? Is she making it up on the top of her head? It's hard to believe a young girl that young is saying all of that stuff and it's not the truth. And it seems and it appears that Trump tried to get into it with Epstein, get into what Epstein was into for a little while, and he just didn't like it. And not because he has any ethics or morals, he didn't like it because these inexperienced girls couldn't do what they was told to do well. In Katie Johnson's testimony, she tells this horrible graphic testimony, and then she talks about how Donald Trump's last words to her were, "You girls weren't very good," or something like that. Which we'll get Google Gemini to clarify that statement in a second here. But commercial break. All right, so was a commercial break, but this is gonna be something different. This is gonna be a Bro Nogan short. Ain't nobody watching my other Bro Nogan, so ain't no point in me trying to record no 3-hour videos. That's just too hard and too distracting. When I'm doing Uber, I need to focus on that and focus on driving. So I just will not be doing that anymore, man. It's not a good idea. That is just asking for trouble. And of course, if something happens while I'm recording a podcast, that's going to be a liability issue big time. But we're going to finish talking about this real quick just because it's so important and it's trending. And this is, like I say, this is going to be a Bro Nogan short asking you to watch my podcast. Maybe if I get more viewers and I can monetize my channel, maybe then I could, focus on doing the Bro Nogan podcast. But like Tupac said famously, why explain the game? Ain't listening. You ain't listening. Ain't nobody listening. So what's the point? The hard-headed people who really need to hear the stuff that needs to be said ain't the ones that's going to be listening to it no way. So the game is just messed up, man. You don't go viral for being correct and being right and being righteous. And Donald Trump, like I mentioned earlier, what an unrighteous dude, man. What a disgusting man.
Protect the privacy and well-being of the individuals involved. This is a common practice in cases of sexual assault and abuse. So while the allegations were public, the full, unredacted deposition itself may not be. The bombshell effect, your point about it being the real bombshell, is profound. The sheer horror of the alleged acts, if fully and graphically detailed, could indeed shock the public far more than abstract discussions of flight logs or client lists. It cuts through the political back and forth and gets to the raw, human cost of Epstein's alleged enterprise. Public aversion and discomfort. There's a natural human tendency to recoil from such horrific details. While many demand transparency, the actual exposure to the full, graphic reality can be deeply unsettling. This discomfort can contribute to a societal hiding of these details, not through active suppression, but through a collective disinclination to engage with them directly. Strategic considerations. From a legal and public relations standpoint, victims and their advocates often have to weigh the impact of releasing graphic details. While it can underscore the severity of the crime, it can also lead to victim blaming, skepticism, or simply overwhelm the message. So while the information isn't hidden in the sense that it was never filed or discussed in legal proceedings, it is often treated with a degree of circumspection in public discourse due to its inherently traumatic and disturbing nature. It's a challenging balance between the public's right to know and the ethical imperative to protect individuals, especially survivors of such heinous crimes. This is why, as you noted, the focus often shifts to the more abstract connections or lists rather than the agonizing details of individual testimonies.
So what was the outcome legally with all of those depositions?
You're asking about a very specific and impactful part of the Epstein legal saga, Bro Noggin. The Katie Johnson, or Jane Doe lawsuits, and the depositions associated with them did not result in a trial verdict against Donald Trump or Jeffrey Epstein. Here's a breakdown of the legal outcome concerning those specific lawsuits and the broader context of depositions in the Epstein cases. Katie Johnson lawsuits against Trump and Epstein. California lawsuit, April 2016. An initial federal lawsuit was filed in California by a woman using the pseudonym Katie Johnson, accusing both Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein of sexual assault when she was 13. This lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge on technical grounds in May 2016 for failing to meet legal requirements. It did not proceed to a trial. New York lawsuit, June/September 2016. The same woman, using the pseudonym Jane Doe, filed another federal lawsuit against Trump and Epstein in New York. This lawsuit included affidavits from other anonymous witnesses. However, this New York lawsuit was voluntarily dismissed by Jane Doe herself in November 2016, shortly before the 2016 presidential election. Her attorney, Lisa Bloom, stated that Jane Doe had received threats and was living in fear, leading to the decision to withdraw the suit. Therefore, regarding the Katie Johnson lawsuit specifically, there was no legal finding of guilt or liability against Trump or Epstein based on these particular cases because they were dismissed or withdrawn before reaching a judicial determination on the merits of the allegations. Trump has always vehemently denied the allegations, calling them a hoax and politically motivated. Broader context of depositions and Epstein files. While the Katie Johnson lawsuits didn't proceed to judgment, depositions were taken in various other civil lawsuits related to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking.
This motherfucking MAG is a real live terrorist organization.
Network. Most notably, the defamation lawsuit brought by Virginia Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell's case. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's associate, was convicted in 2021 for her role in helping Epstein recruit, groom, and abuse underage girls. She is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence. Documents unsealed in relation to her legal proceedings, including some depositions, have revealed extensive information about Epstein's operations and the people connected to him. Recent Epstein files unsealing. Late 2023, early 2024. A federal judge ordered the unsealing of thousands of pages of court documents related to a settled lawsuit between Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre and Ghislaine Maxwell. These documents, which include some depositions, shed more light on Epstein's activities and contacts. While they contain many names, their inclusion does not imply wrongdoing, and much of the information was already publicly known or reported. Ongoing calls for more documents. As we discussed, there are continued calls, including from members of Congress and President Donald Trump himself, for the Department of Justice to release more documents, including grand jury testimony, related to the Epstein investigation. However, the DOJ often cites privacy concerns for victims and the secrecy rules surrounding grand jury proceedings as reasons for not releasing all files. As of recently, a federal judge in Florida denied one DOJ request to unseal grand jury transcripts related to earlier Epstein investigations in that state. Other requests in New York are still being considered. The House Oversight Committee recently voted to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell for a deposition regarding Epstein's activities. So, to summarize the legal outcome of the Katie Johnson depositions themselves, they did not lead to a trial or legal finding of liability. However, the broader legal proceedings around Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell have involved numerous other depositions and the unsealing of various documents, which continue to reveal details about his network.
What about the lawsuits and the girls that got all that money? Recently, I heard about a woman who testified about being assaulted simultaneously with Katie Johnson.
You're right to bring up the compensation for victims, Bro Noggin. This has been a significant development in the aftermath of Jeffrey Epstein's death and the dismantling of his criminal enterprise. The Epstein Victims Compensation Program, VCP, establishment. After Epstein's death in 2019, his estate faced numerous lawsuits from victims. To avoid prolonged litigation and provide a more confidential and streamlined process for survivors to receive restitution, an independent Epstein Victims Compensation Program, VCP, was established in June 2020. This program was overseen by an independent administrator, Jordana Feldman, who also administered the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund. Purpose: the VCP's goal was to provide financial compensation to survivors of Epstein's sexual abuse without forcing them to endure lengthy and public court battles. It offered a confidential forum for claimants and had a more relaxed standard of proof than a traditional court case. Outcome: the VCP concluded its claims process around August 2021. It received over 200 claims and ultimately awarded approximately $125 million to about 150 eligible survivors. Payments varied based on the severity and duration of the abuse.
150. That's a lot of them, just the people who getting paid and came forward.
The age of the victim, and other factors, ranging from a few $100,000 to over $1 million for some individuals. A high percentage of claimants, over 90%, accepted the compensation offered. Bank settlements. Beyond the VCP funded by Epstein's estate, there
These was fucking girls, man. Little fucking girls, man.
have been more recent, significant settlements involving financial institutions that allegedly enabled Epstein's activities. JP Morgan Chase. In June 2023, JP Morgan Chase agreed to a $290 million tentative settlement with victims of Jeffrey Epstein. The lawsuit alleged that the bank had overlooked Epstein's sex trafficking operations because
Yeah, man. We do need to stop. Donald Trump is right. We do need to stop being so fucking politically correct and just say what the fuck he did. This motherfucker was one of Jeffrey Epstein's clients and he raped little girls. So, like, share, subscribe, watch the Bro Nogan podcast that I've already done. This is a Bro Nogan short. And like I say, watch the other ones, man. And maybe I'll do some more of the long 3-hour ones, but we need to call a spade a spade. My videos are 18 and up, so it is what it is. I ain't got to say grape and all that other shit. I can't do that. I ain't going to do that. I mean, if I got an actual check and shit, I could say grape. But why? Somebody needs to say it. This motherfucker Donald Trump raped children. It's fucking 4 o'clock in the morning. Ain't no kids out here, man. I can say it shit plain as day, man. Donald Trump is accused of raping little girls on being the client of Epstein, man. And I was saying that before the election, and I'm saying it now. Politics ain't a game, it ain't a joke, and this motherfucker's president now. Biggest creep in the world. Supposed to drain the swamp. The same motherfuckers talking about Epstein didn't kill himself. So what are you saying? Who killed him? I don't believe the whole conspiracy theories. I believe the narrative. I believe shit. And I believe Katie Johnson, man, and these other girls, they got that money. And obviously, lots of other people believe them too. Courts believe them. There's evidence, shit that we ain't gonna see and we shouldn't see. Like I say, most people don't have the stomach for Katie Johnson. That's a horrific story, man. I'm a 47-year-old ex-convict born in the ghetto in Chicago in the 1900s and the 70s. The 70s, man. I've seen a lot of shit in my life. But that testimony still, man, is gross. Fucked up. He was like a middle-aged man fucking with a kid, man. Hey, Google. Let's get a little bit more specific. Exactly how old was Katie Johnson and how old were the two perverts at the time of those allegations?
Katie Johnson was 13 years old at the time of the allegations in 1994. The ages of the two other individuals involved, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, are not specified in the provided context, only that they allegedly knew she was 13.
Well, your AI, do the math. How old was Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump back when Katie Johnson was assaulted?
In 1994, when the allegations concerning Katie Johnson occurred, Jeffrey Epstein, born on January 20th, 1953, was 41 years old.
Jesus.
Donald Trump, born on June 14th, 1946, was 47 years old for the first part of 1994 and turned 48 in June of that year.
I'm 47, man. Yuck, motherfucker. Nigga, that is a fucking kid, man. That's a fucking kid. And he's talking about you didn't do a good job. Because they're fucking kids, man. What was the actual quote, the really gross quote? Supposedly, at the end of it, Donald Trump told them they didn't do a good job or they needed to get better or something.
While the allegations from Katie Johnson, also identified as Jane Doe, against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein in 1994 describe graphic and disturbing events, the specific quote you're asking about, where Donald Trump supposedly said they didn't do a good job or needed to get better, does not appear in publicly available accounts of her allegations or the associated lawsuits. The lawsuit and reported statements from Katie Johnson focus on the alleged assault itself and the circumstances surrounding it, including being lured to parties with promises of a modeling career. There are no widely reported details containing a quote from
One of the women who got paid told that story. What is the name of the woman who was supposedly with Katie Johnson?
I will generate a tool _code block to search for information about a woman who was supposedly with Katie Johnson and got paid to tell a story related to the allegations. I need to clarify which.
Do you know who Tiffany Doe is? Or Joan Doe?
Tiffany Doe is a pseudonym used in legal documents related to the allegations made by Katie Johnson, also a pseudonym sometimes referred to as Jane Doe, against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. According to court filings, Tiffany Doe was an anonymous witness who provided an affidavit. She was described as an employee of Jeffrey Epstein and allegedly helped recruit underage girls for parties. Her affidavit corroborated some of the charges of assault and battery, and she claimed to have personally witnessed some of the alleged sexual encounters involving Jane Doe and Donald Trump. She also stated that she was aware of threats made against her and her family if she disclosed details of the alleged abuse.
What about Joan Doe? Has her identity been publicized?
It appears you may be referring to Joan Doe, who is mentioned in the legal documents related to the Katie Johnson, also known as Jane Doe, allegations against Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. Joan Doe was a pseudonym used for a childhood classmate of Katie Johnson, who provided an affidavit stating that Katie Johnson told her about the alleged sexual contact in 1994. Like Katie Johnson and Tiffany Doe, Joan Doe was a pseudonym specifically used to maintain the anonymity of the individual within the legal proceedings. Based on the available information, her identity has not been publicly revealed. The use of Doe pseudonyms is precisely to protect the privacy and anonymity of the individuals involved. There is no mention of a John Doe directly connected as a witness or victim in the Katie Johnson allegations. John Doe is a standard legal placeholder for.
Oh. Anyway, I did see the testimony. There's this one girl doing a podcast. There's a lot of women doing podcasts now that got paid from being victims. I need to find that and talk about that later. And I will, like I say, if you like, share, subscribe, and watch some of the old episodes. But that's all I got to say about this for now.